Welcome back, everybody. Again, I hope you had a nice little break in there because we were just finishing up talking about filling research holes by getting to Google and getting in and getting quickly what you wanted so that you can use it and get your results a lot quicker. However, when your results come up, we know that a lot of times the internet can be unreliable. Now, this is one of my favorite videos that kind of demonstrates that point. I want to show you guys. It's a little bit funny. It's only about 30 seconds, so here we go. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to sell you guys car insurance, but I did want that to use that video to demonstrate a point. Not everything on the internet is true. And you guys are going to have to weed through, and we're going to have to do it kind of quickly because you're filling in these holes and you want to get it done. So, checking out a website in general to see how reliable it is. One general rule of thumb is that the two most reliable typically tend to be .govs and .edus. Now, a .gov is a government agency. So, if you go on bensalem.gov, and that's going to give you our township where we reside. It's going to tell you information that the mayor puts out there, and your local representatives. But there's .govs for all over the United States, including the entire United States. The federal government has its own website. A lot of times .govs can be great, especially when you're looking for information like on health information, um, or laws and that kind of stuff. However, you want to be a little bit wary about .govs for certain things. Like if you were trying to research something that was like, oh, let's talk about war crimes that American soldiers committed. That's not going to be advertised on a .gov. Or if you want to, Google or check out how much, or maybe taxes are too high. Again, a .gov is not going to go ahead and advertise and be like, yeah, we charge taxes too much, people. So be a little bit leery, but in general, you can find a lot of great reliable information for .govs. The same thing goes with .edus. .edus are reserved for colleges and universities. So if you notice, where our school district, and to get to our school, we type in bensalemsd.org because we're K through 12, and anything that's K through 12 or even lower than K, you typically a .org. You don't get a .edu. That's usually reserved just for colleges and universities. Now, colleges and universities can be great because you have specific subjects, and there's things that people have dedicated their entire lives to studying. So there are maybe people out there who are medical researchers who have used animal testing that may be good, or maybe there's people who have researched how gun control laws affect different countries. And, they are professors at Harvard and Yale and Princeton and all the top places, and they've studied these specific subjects for decades and decades. That's when .edus can be really great. However, you also want to realize, like, let's say that you're checking out something, you're researching which is the best college for the money. Well, you're probably not going to trust one of these .edus because if you do, they're all going to say, we're the best college for the money. You should send your tuition checks to us. So be a little bit leery. Now comes in the other three that are the biggest ones on the internet, but can also be the most or the least reliable. That's .orgs, .net, and .com. Now, what a .org is that it stands for there's a nonprofit organization. So people hear the word nonprofit and they automatically start to think, oh, wow, they must be trustworthy because they're nonprofit organizations. They're not out to make money. And that's not always true about nonprofit organizations. Their goal is to not be in business. However, there's nonprofits that still make millions and millions of dollars each year. So they can always be out to sell you something. And just because you're part of an organization also doesn't mean that you're not crazy or don't know what you're talking about. As there's cults out there who have .orgs, crazy people who make up things and believe in the weirdest stuff. There's all kinds of people. I could start a .org tomorrow with 5 or 6 other people, and maybe our whole organization could be dedicated to getting people to drink water out of a toilet. Now, obviously, you're going to look at that and think, oh, they're crazy and they don't know what they're talking about. But sometimes people can pass themselves really well. So be very leery of .orgs. .nets and .coms are also the same things. A lot of times people think .net means that it is more reliable because it's part of a network. But really, guys, like it's just like a .org. Anybody can be part of any network. I mean, many of you probably have Verizon for your internet at home or Comcast for your internet at home. And if you do, your parents will have a Comcast.net or Verizon.net um, email address, they are now part of a network. That doesn't mean that they have anything in common with anybody else that's in that network, except for that they pay the same person or the same company in order to have internet service. So .nets aren't any more reliable than a .com, and we know that a .com is anything goes. It could be a business, it could be a scam website, it could be fake news, purposely out to trick you. It can be something that's somebody who has good intentions but just doesn't know what they're talking about. So always be careful with these. Try to stick with .govs and .edus when you're looking for something in a quick pinch, but if not, maybe do a little bit of research into if you're looking at an organization's website or a .com website, maybe do a little side check real quick to see if these are reliable information and reliable sites that you can use. So typically, when you're looking at your websites, you guys, the most important thing is you have to use your brain. We ask a lot of times, and I know this is so cliche. We've said this a million times. But you talk about the 5 Ws: the who, what, when, where, and why of websites. And once you start thinking about it and looking at it, you're going to be able to tell whether this website is more reliable or not. So the who of a website, you have to think, who wrote this page and are they an expert? Is there a biography of the author included, and how can you find out more about the author? So you have to also be wary. Don't just go with the information they put on that website. But if you're looking at who wrote it, and maybe I made a website and I wrote it all about how to perform surgery on your broken leg at home, and I can put in my biography that I'm Mrs. Bray and I'm the world's leadest surgeon on at-home leg surgery, and I'm an expert, and I have a degree from Harvard and Yale and Princeton, and Albert Einstein himself taught me how to do this. It doesn't mean that just because I put that on there about myself that any of it's true. What you might want to do is open up a new tab, do a little side Google, and type in, Mrs. Bray and type surgery. And you might find out that although I'm a pretty good librarian, I have no idea how to perform surgery on a leg, so you don't want to listen to information from that about me. Now, the next thing that you want to look at is the what of it. So, and basically, what is the purpose of this website? Are these people trying to sell me something? And when I say try to sell me something, I mean the literal way and the figurative way. So, are they trying to sell me something, meaning do they want me to pay them money for something? If people want you to pay money for something, you have to be super leery of their website. There's also ones that maybe they don't want to sell you and get your money, but maybe they want to get stuff like your likes on a Facebook or your votes to vote for them in something. And they might be trying to sell you something in a different way, to make you believe what they want you to believe, whether it's true or not. So be really careful of that one. Now, the when is an important thing. And when you're doing research, you're going to have to decide whether the information is still good and relevant or if something's too old. And you have to be like really wary of this. I tell everybody this every year, so I'm going to give you my challenge. Out there, I have one of my original websites from when the internet first came out, when I was about sixth, seventh grade, when the internet really got popular, and we would have to dial up on a phone the internet. That's how it would go, and it would make this like noise and to get you onto line. And it ran super, super slow. If any of you saw Captain Marvel, they showed you an example of how the internet looked back then. But I have my internet from my profile from when I was in eighth grade. And on that, I am talking about all my favorite things. Like, I like Nike, I like dances, I like all rap music and whatever. And guys, in my picture on it, I'm wearing like brown lipstick. I have dark black lip liner on. My hair is all scrunched and slicked. I'm probably wearing Reebok Classics with knee-high socks. I got like 4-inch fingernails glued onto me, and I'm probably wearing like 3 chains because at the time that was the style. Now, if you were looking on information for me and you about me right now, writing about me, and you found that website, is that going to tell you anything about who I am now? No, but that'll give you a little background information about who I was when I was 13 years old, but not how I am today now that it's much, much later. So be very wary of when it was last created and also when it was last updated to make sure it's the most up to date information. Now, where kind of goes with the what. You have to look at where the information came from. So if it's an organization that's trying to sell you on something or get you to think a certain way, or somebody different sponsors the site, you have to be on the lookout for that. And last but not least is why. Like, why should I use this page over another page? Why is this the best information for me? And if you can be like, boom, this is the exact thing that fills in the holes that I'm looking for, by all means, fill in those holes that I'm looking for. And guys, I think I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but the challenge was if you can find that website of me, I will buy you lunch every single day for a week. But nobody's been able to find it yet in the last 5 years. But just to check that out, you might be able to find it. And no, I'm not going to give any clues. So now that you know how to evaluate these websites and realize if they're reliable or not, you have to remember that the most valuable tool is your brain. Guys, you are super smart. You have been doing research for weeks now, but you still have to use your brain to think about whether or not this is something that you definitely want to use. So remember that when you're out there and you're Googling, number one, we never start with Google. But now that you're at the point where you just need one or two little points of information, you can get on Google. You can Google like a boss. You can use all of the different ones that we talked about, all of our limiters, and you can go through and evaluate all your sources to see how they are. So that is my little tips to you guys so that you can fill those in. What you should be doing now is going through and using Google if and only if you still have research holes to do it. Some of you may not have any research holes. You might have all the information that you need already in your databases from the articles that you printed out, and that's great. But for anybody else that's just missing one or two, go out there, Google like a boss. I'll be back on Monday so I can help anybody that if needs help with anything. But right now, you can ask Mr. Hoffman or Miss Vavakwa, and you guys will be all set to go. So good luck with your Googling. Good luck with your essays, and I'll see everybody on Monday.